Americans for Fair Taxation presents the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation, and recorded by Bob Paxton, a volunteer with the Florida FAIRtax Educational Association. And now, this week's Chairman's Report.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton with the AFFT Chairman's Report for Friday, April 18th, 2025. This week's Chairman's Report is written by Tony Urbanek. Tony practices oral and maxillofacial surgery and is on the Americans for Fair Taxation Board of Directors. Tennessee Resolution HJR 17. I was first introduced to the idea of replacing the repressive income tax with a consumption tax in 1991. The concept made sense to me. Our country was founded on the principle of as much freedom for the individual as possible with limited government control. But that's not what happened since the income tax was passed by Congress in 1913. When a political body wants to inhibit or gain control over something, it uses taxation as a tool, best example being the tax on alcohol and cigarettes. A consumption tax, on the other hand, places control in the hands of the consumer as to when and under what circumstances he or she is taxed. This brings personal freedom and limited government into the hands of the citizens as our founding fathers intended. Now, since 1991, I have introduced thousands of individuals to the concept of a national sales tax, now called the FAIRtax, represented by a bill in Congress, H.R. 25, which will replace all the variations of the income tax with a national consumption tax. Almost without exception, those approached with the idea were complimentary, in agreement with the concept, voiced their support, and then, almost to a person, said, "But it'll never happen." The inference being, the federal government is so strong and used to the benefits created by placing the controls of the income tax on its citizens, it's useless to try to change the status quo. In contradiction to those feelings of frustration and defeat, my personal motto is never give up and never give in when you are certain your purpose is correct and beneficial for the greatest good to the greatest number. So, it's very ironic that my life adventures since 1991 brought me where they did. I cannot be more grateful that as a young man I landed in Tennessee. Besides being a great place to raise my family, Tennessee shares my view on personal freedom and limited government, funds its budget on a consumption tax with a yearly surplus, and has ensconced the elimination of a state income tax in its constitution. After 34 years of never giving up and never giving in with the help of friends and members of the Tennessee House and Senate, the Tennessee General Assembly has passed HJR 17. HJR 17 sends President Trump and members of Congress a message urging them to support H.R. 25, the FAIRtax, using Tennessee as the best example to follow as a model of taxation most beneficial to its citizens. People and companies from around the world and other parts of the United States are flocking to Tennessee to enjoy the benefits of life without a state income tax. Tennessee has proven a consumption tax rather than an income tax is the best way to fund its government. Tennessee, the volunteer state, is proud to promote itself as the model for the rest of the country to follow. In conclusion, with increasing support in America for eliminating the income tax in the IRS, Tennessee's H.R. 17 is a huge message from a state that eliminated its state income tax and boomed its economy. The resolution is saying to Congress that the FAIRtax can do for America what eliminating the state income tax did for Tennessee. Thank you, Tony. Now, many of you have labored tirelessly for freedom from the federal income tax and the IRS. You deserve a great deal of credit for your efforts to educate the American people on the need to fund the American government in a way that's good for America and that returns freedom to the American people. It's imperative, though, that we don't replace the current income tax in the IRS with an alternative system that can still be manipulated by the ruling elite. We must let Congress and the President know that the best way to replace the income tax in the IRS is with the FAIRtax. Now, make no mistake about it. The FAIRtax is a grave threat to the ruling elites. It will strip them of their power and their ability to control us through the tax system. Their opposition to the FAIRtax will be fierce and unrelenting, and don't think for an instant they won't use half-truths, deception, and downright lies in their desperate attempt to hang on to their power. However, with the support of this president, we can finally eliminate the income tax in the IRS. Of course, The best course of action is not only to repeal the income tax and abolish the IRS, but to repeal the 16th Amendment as well, so no future administration can ever shackle the American people with an income tax again. We must come together and ensure that real tax reform, the FAIRtax, is not subverted by the elites in D.C. This will take the diligent efforts of all of us. We need your financial assistance, and we need your grassroots assistance. Now, if you have contacts that will allow us to get more information about the FAIRtax to President Trump, please let us know. Also, please email us at info@fairtax.org, and we'll give you some options on how you can best help us. At a minimum, please call your congressional representative and ask if he or she supports the FAIRtax. If so, thank him or her for their support and suggest they become a co-sponsor of H.R. 25 if they're not one already. If not, ask why not. Now, if your representative claims to be unfamiliar with the FAIRtax, offer to have someone come to their office and explain it to them. The solution? Pass the FAIRtax. Now, why would D.C. pass the FAIRtax and give up an almost unlimited source of donations? Well, they won't, at least not voluntarily. The only way they will is if the rest of us demand it. Isn't it time to end this ludicrous tax collection system and the IRS along with it? Help us bring about real tax reform and stop future IRS abuses. By contributing or investing $10.40 a month, you help provide a financial base to Americans for fair taxation. Now, if you can make larger contributions/investments, these will be used not for salaries, as we're all volunteers, but for the needed updates to our economic studies, which will be vital for all future years. Please go to fairtax.org to invest in AFFT and help us pass the FAIRtax. It's an investment in your and your family's future.
This has been the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation. Check back every week for news and information about the FAIRtax, and learn why the FAIRtax should replace our antiquated federal income tax system. If you'd like to receive a copy of the Chairman's Report in your inbox every week, sign up at fairtax.org.